Hey there, everyone. We've got a line of showers and storms, some of which are strong to severe, moving across portions of the capital city in towards Lansing, Jackson, down through Hillsdale, and now portions of our area under a severe thunderstorm warning. That is into Livingston County. The rest of us not under any warnings. We have the watch that extends all the way up towards Interstate 69. But as of right now, the worst of this storm appears to be just to the south of Interstate 69, closer to 96, but definitely down 94 towards the Ohio-Michigan border. We are looking at that severe thunderstorm warning right here in Livingston County in orange. That is for 60-mile-per-hour winds until 8 p.m. local time. Could be some small hail, but overall the risk is for damaging winds to come out of this storm. Of course, we've also been monitoring for some potential rotation in any of these storms. This line has the opportunity of seeing a couple brief areas of spin, which could put down a tornado. But as of right now, currently just seeing a damaging wind threat with this line of storms. And we are likely going to continue to see that moving east and northeast with time. So it could start to scrape. So as of right now, this is the progression of that line. It's going to continue to move east-northeast. So it could start to move towards Shiawassee, Genesee counties, especially southern Genesee, southern Shiawassee, and also southern Lapeer, but also Oakland County. As we go north of Interstate 69, the environment is not as conducive for severe weather. So it's really going to be across our southern communities that we are watching for this potential and also for this threat. Interstate 69, the environment is not as... One more time, if you're just joining us, we have our severe thunderstorm warning in for Livingston County until 8 p.m. local time. This storm could be bringing along with it 60-mile-per-hour winds and also some small hail as well. I'm going to get an idea of how fast this storm is moving right now. And we are seeing it at about 50 miles per hour off to the northeast. So I'm going to put a track on this storm, give us an idea of when it will get into a few of our communities off to the northeast. Actually, I need to make sure that I have the right wind speed, or at least the right speed on that, and I do. So as we continue to monitor this cell and this storm, it does have the potential of those, again, 60-mile-per-hour winds and some small hail. We'll put it out over the next hour and a half or so. So as of right now, the worst of the storm looks to be across Livingston County, Oakland County, far southern, Shiawassee, Genesee, and also Lapeer County. So if you live in Flint, it'll be about 7:30, 8 o'clock that this line will be into Genesee County. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to shrink this and just try and get a few of our communities instead of a lot of those across the south. So again, between about 7:30, 8 o'clock for Flint, Grand Blanc, also 7:30, 8 o'clock. If you're in Argentine, closer to 7:30, potentially between more so 7:15, 7:45, and then over towards Lapeer, I would say 8 to 8:30 is the time frame you're looking at these storms moving on in. These storms could also start to slow down as the system slows down as well. So it doesn't mean that these times will be accurate, but it gives you an idea that this is moving at about 50 miles per hour. Even if it does slow down, it's between about 7 and 10 o'clock that I would say our greatest severe weather risk will happen in through our southern communities towards I-69. Stephanie Ann, about the thumb. Depends on where you are. So if you could give me an idea of what county you're in, I can give you a better update about your severe weather risk. Once again, if you're joining us, we are watching this complex of showers and thunderstorms, some of which are strong to severe. It's really more so across Metro Detroit that the worst of the conditions are likely going to occur with this because they've had a little bit more heat and humidity build up compared to us. So we are seeing temperatures in the 70s. They have some readings in the 80s. And they also have some higher humidity down there as well. So they have the better ingredients for strong to severe storms, especially damaging winds, while we are a little bit more lacking in that realm and in that possibility. So we are just going to continue to monitor these storms. I'm going to also save this so I don't lose my spot. But I'm going to go over to the velocity just to see if we have any potential areas of rotation. Stephanie, Cass City, and Tuscola, I would say your severe weather risk is close to zero. You'll probably still have the potential of some stronger winds, not necessarily to severe limits, but you may have some breezy conditions coming out of these storms, but also a lot of heavy rain, dangerous cloud to ground lightning as well. But I would say your severe weather risk is pretty low. Linden, it's a different story. You will have the highest risk that we have in the area, so damaging winds would be the main opportunity for you between about 7:30 and 8:30, I would say, is your time frame to keep an eye out for these storms. Tanya, for Bay City, you are not under a severe thunderstorm watch. Your severe weather risk is close to zero with any of these storms. So once again, going to keep an eye on this, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to change this product. It's not looking all that great for whatever reason. I think we're getting some bad data. Well, as I'm kind of flipping through these, all right, so if we did have the potential area of rotation, it would be right about here. So you can see that winds are going away from the radar, and I'm going to change that color so you can see it a little bit better. Now, this is not tornado warned, but if we did have some rotation, it'd be coming right through here. And then, of course, actually, that is the wrong direction. My apologies. So this is going to be going towards the radar, and then we have winds going away from the radar. So we have a little bit of rotation towards the Bunker Hill area in Ingham County, and that is eventually going to potentially move into Livingston County, but this would be closer to I-96. So out of our area right now, it's just something that bears watching, because if this continues to move more northeasterly instead of easterly, we do have the potential of some rotation there. Carl Davison, you are in that severe weather risk. You are under that severe thunderstorm watch. The potential is there that we get some warnings into Davison, I would say probably between about 7:30 and 8:30. Brooklyn, Michigan, you are also in that severe weather risk, Jamie. For Owasso, you have that threat, likely over the next hour or so. Holly, you also have that threat, I would say, within the next hour or two. Bay City, you are out of the severe weather risk as it currently stands. Flint, between 7:30 and 8:30, Sarah, for that severe weather threat. Debbie in Millington, I would say your risk is very low for any of this severe weather. Genesee, that risk is between about 7:30, 8:30. Same thing in Schwartz Creek, 7:30 to 8:30. Imlay City, it's going to be a little bit later, so I would say probably 8 to 9, but you do have the risk of some damaging winds. Sanilac County, you're not in this severe thunderstorm watch, so I would say your risk is pretty low. Chesaning, just kind of looking at the radar, your risk is pretty close to zero at this point for severe weather. Indian River, you have no risk of severe weather in northern lower Michigan. Midland, your risk is close to zero. I would say you have really no concerns about severe weather, but you know, even though I'm talking about damaging winds, the severe weather risk, For those of you that may be closer to 0, we do have a flood threat. So don't let your guard down about flooding. Flooding is still a potential. If you have a flood advisory, flood warning, or even flash flood warning, make sure you take that seriously. Byron and Shiawassee County, I would say your risk is low but non-zero. Saginaw, your risk is close to 0. St. Clair, your risk is going to be higher because this line of storms is setting its sights on you right now, but it will be later, so likely after sunset that you see the risk of severe weather. Fowlerville, your risk is fairly low. I would say that just making sure that, because you're kind of seeing the storms kind of moving in right now. So you do have the damaging wind threat. So I would just kind of make sure you're staying in a sturdy building over the next hour or so. Linden, Grand Blanc, your severe weather risk is there. It's going to likely be over the next hour or so, maybe hour to an hour and a half, that we are watching these storms for you in Linden and Grand Blanc. Clio, you also have that damaging wind threat. Sanilac, your risk is very low. Lynn and Highland. Your risk is really not there in Highland. Flint, that threat is over the next hour or two. And if you are just joining us, we have that severe thunderstorm warning, and we also have a new tornado warning. So as you guys were maybe seeing me talk about a little bit ago, but we had that rotation that was popping up in Ingham County, and now there is that tornado warning right here. It hasn't been extended into Livingston County, but we do have a tornado warning right there that was just issued for that area of rotations. So something that we are going to be monitoring for sure. In Freeland, your risk is pretty close to 0. And I'm trying to get to everyone's city, so forgive me if I accidentally skip over you. Cass City, it looks like your risk is pretty close to 0 as well. Shiawassee, it's a little bit higher, so we're going to be monitoring you for the next hour. Same thing in Flint, the next hour or two, we do have the risk of damaging winds. Sheboygan County, no risk there. Milford, there is the opportunity at damaging winds, maybe a spin-up tornado, Terry. Clio, you have the risk, but the further north that you go from I-69, the lower your chance is for severe weather. Columbiaville, I would say your risk is fairly low, but something that we will be monitoring the next couple of hours. New Lothrop, I would say your risk is fairly low as well. Elmont, you have a higher risk because you're in southern Lapeer County. You do have the potential of some damaging winds with these storms. Burton, you have the risk over the next couple of hours. Darlene, this storm system is moving at about 50 miles per hour off to the northeast. So we'll put this into motion, and you can see how quickly it is pushing on in. Again, there is that tornado warning in Ingham County, not in our area specifically, but if that gets extended into Livingston County, we will definitely be covering it. Goodrich, you have the risk over the next couple of hours for damaging winds. Billy, for Owasso, looking at the northern side of this system, it may just clip you, but I don't think your risk is all particularly high. Saginaw, your risk is close to 0. New Hudson County, you do have a risk of damaging winds coming on in and maybe a brief or isolated tornado. Anyone in Genesee County, including Burton, you have that opportunity at some damaging winds, especially closer to Interstate 69. The further north that you go of Interstate 69, the lower the threat will be. White Lake, you have that risk over the next couple of hours of damaging winds, brief tornado. For you in Kingston, Marlette, your risk is pretty close to zero. Fenton within the next hour or two. Lapeer in about a couple hours. Flushing within the next hour or two. Lake area, Clare County, your risk is zero for severe weather. Schwartz Creek, Burton, Davison, also within the next hour or two, we'll be watching for the potential of damaging winds. Same thing for Flushing, Clio. Again, as you go further to the north, you may lose out on that opportunity, but still going to watch the threat across all of Genesee County. Mickey, for Holly, your risk is there. You may see this severe thunderstorm warning extended into Oakland County, so damaging wind threat is going to be there over the next hour or two. Susan, same thing into Flint Township. Tara, Rochester Hills is probably going to be in a couple hours that you have a severe risk for damaging winds and that isolated tornado. Millington, your risk is fairly low. Owasso, you may see some stronger winds out of this line over the next hour. Mount Pleasant, your risk is pretty much zero. Lindsay. Southern Shiawassee, same thing for Owasso. You may have some stronger winds over the next hour. Nancy, it depends on how far north of Flint that you are. For those of you in Montrose, your risk is going to be on the lower end. Clio, Mount Morris, Brennan. It's something that we're definitely going to keep watching for maybe some damaging winds, but as of right now, the progression of this storm system, it may keep a lot of this heavier wind along and south of Interstate 69. So if you live north of Interstate 69, you may miss out on this entirely. So kind of keep that in mind if you're wondering for your city. If you're north of I-69, I would say your threat is fairly low. If you're along and south of I-69, your threat is going to be a little bit more elevated. And that includes Clarkston, as well as Flint and Schwartz Creek. Midland, Stephanie, your risk is pretty much close to zero. And this is for damaging winds and a brief or isolated tornado that we're talking about right now. Michael, your risk is pretty much close to zero as well. Heather, for Flint, over the next hour or two, we're going to be watching for a damaging wind potential. Bay City, Exisville area, Nancy, you are pretty much close to zero with this risk. For Heartland, South Fenton, you are under that severe thunderstorm warning until 8 p.m., so you have the opportunity of damaging winds and a brief or isolated tornado. As we still do have that tornado warning out in Ingham County, so it's something we are going to be watching very closely. Flushing and Fenton, you have the risk of damaging winds, but as of right now, we are just kind of monitoring for things to maybe stay off to your south. In the Cadillac area, your risk is zero. Maureen, if you're hearing sirens in Fenton, it's just because they have issued that severe thunderstorm warning. So they are kind of preparing people that within the next hour or so, there is the opportunity at some of these damaging winds to come through, because we did just see an update to this severe thunderstorm warning. Those winds are now upgraded to about 70 miles per hour, and there is a tornado possible tag. So we are seeing some rotation in this line in Livingston County. So if you're in the Fenton area and you're hearing the sirens, it's for that reason, because that risk has been upgraded a little bit with this severe thunderstorm warning. I'm going to jump back over to our velocity just to kind of look and see if we do have any rotation coming out of this storm. When you start to get into the reds with this green shading, and you can see some pretty strong winds coming out right here with that tornado warning, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the warning off and just have it for us, more so talking about these damaging wind gusts. So, you know, our radar picture is picking up 60 to 70 mile per hour winds potentially out of this cell that's moving now into Livingston County. As of right now, the worst of it looks to be south of I-96. But as you can see up towards the Fenton area, Fenton, you're not under a severe thunderstorm warning. So I'm a little bit confused as to why you may be hearing sirens. You may be hearing sirens from cities to your south if you're right along the border. But as of right now, it looks as though the worst of this wind and also spin-up tornado threat, because again, we are seeing these winds going away from the radar right here and then towards the radar right here. So we do have a little bit of spin there to go along with the potential of 60 to 70 mile per hour gusts. But this is in far southern Livingston County. So this is going to be for those around Howell and Brighton and Heartland that we're watching for the greatest risk right now with this storm. As you go further to the north, it's less of a threat of these damaging winds. The worst of the winds look to be across southern and central Livingston County. Mike, for the tornado potential in Flint, I don't really think it's all that high. I think it's pretty close to zero. Chelsea, Midland threat is as close to zero as you can get. Lapeer, you could see some stronger winds in a couple hours. Owasso, your risk is going lower and lower with each passing minute. So again, right now, where we are seeing the worst of the wind is coming out of this cell. And I'll put it into motion just to show you its overall track. So you can see it's moving northeast with time. So it is going to continue in this direction. So potentially up towards the Heartland area and maybe just south of Fenton. It's something that we are going to very closely monitor. So it's really Livingston County that we're watching right now. Avery, for Fenton, again, we're monitoring that area of wind. So this is where the strongest wind is currently. And there's also a little bit of rotation that is happening right here. And that's going to continue on to the northeast. So it may be moving towards the Fenton area. We'll just have to see if it maintains its strength. But I would say keep your guard up between 7:30 and 8:30. Lansing, you are getting behind this risk. Same thing into West Lansing. For Burton and Otisville, your risk is on the lower end, but we're still watching for maybe some damaging winds that could sneak up into there. Same thing for Vassar and Duran, and as we mentioned, just Burton. Birch Run area, Kylie, your risk is pretty close to zero. Oxford, Ortonville area, excuse me, for Susan. Because you are in far northern Oakland, we're going to have to watch and see how much of this wind is able to maintain itself, because it is going in your direction. I would say after 8:30 is when you should be keeping an eye on this. Mike, near zero potential for a tornado. Yes, that does include this line coming in. Just because it looks like the worst of the conditions will stay south of Flint. As of right now, just kind of what we're seeing on radar. Grand Blanc, Flushing, we're going to watch for the possibility of a few damaging wind gusts to sneak up that far to the north. But, it looks as though the worst of the conditions will be across Livingston and Oakland and maybe far southern Genesee and far southern Lapeer counties. Chelsea and Otisville, your risk is going to be fairly low. I would not say you have a tornado, really high tornado potential. I would say it's pretty close to zero. Grand Blanc, Flushing, Linden, Davison. I'm going to kind of lump all of those together. There is a damaging wind threat. As of right now, just with the current progression of radar and our velocity, it's something we're going to watch, but I am just kind of keeping a close eye on the damaging wind risk. Carl, does the Davison area have tornado potential? I would say it's pretty low. Same thing into Lapeer County. But again, you can kind of see that this area of stronger winds is coming out of this cell right into Livingston County. So we're going to have to watch and see how far north this ends up getting. For those of you just joining us, we have our severe thunderstorm warning in Livingston County. This does not include anybody across I-69. That does not include Shiawassee, Genesee, or also Lapeer counties. Just Livingston County, and this is until 8 p.m. for the 70-mile-per-hour wind potential, and there is a little bit of rotation as well with this cell. Yep, Mike, that is what we are watching right now on our radar currently, just with that intense area of wind that's coming straight towards the Howell area. Could be over towards Heartland within the next half an hour, but it is likely going to stay south of most of our area. But something that we watch very closely. Stephen, the Bay City outlook looks very low on the severe weather risk. Again, we are continuing to monitor this area of strong winds coming out of this storm. This is moving towards the Howell area. We're going to see how far north this gets into our region. As of right now, I would expect it to stay south of most of our area. Ash, the tornado outlook for Flint is very low. We're going to watch this area of spin that is happening right around the Howell region. But currently, it looks as though, just with the kind of putting a track on it, it looks as though it would stay more so into Livingston and Oakland counties rather than jumping into Genesee County. But for those of you around Fenton, something that we are going to be watching very closely. Bay City, lots of rain coming, potentially some flooding, but the severe weather risk is close to zero for you. Darlene, Memphis, Michigan, we are potentially going to have some of these stronger winds coming towards you in a couple hours. So no risk in the short term. Lacey, for Heartland, you have definitely a risk of damaging winds. You can see this area. So right now, this is where the worst of the winds are coming out of these storms. So it's potentially heading right in your direction. I would say within the next half an hour to 45 minutes, you could potentially be seeing some very strong winds coming through your area. That is why we have seen that risk upgraded with that severe thunderstorm warning to 70-mile-per-hour winds potentially. So I would definitely, if you can, I would definitely get into a basement, but especially getting on the lowest floor away from any of those outdoor walls. So here's the overall look at this storm system. Anything north of Interstate 69 right now is non-severe. Bay City, zooming in on you, the rain is pretty much going to start within the next 5 to 10 minutes, and it will continue to get heavier. The worst of these storms are going to be likely held in check south of Interstate 69, but we're going to, of course, watch northern Livingston, northern Oakland with this wave. Going back to our velocity, again, we're watching this area right around the Howell region for some damaging winds, and then we'll continue to trace that potentially up towards, maybe the Holly area, Groveland, Austin Corners, maybe even into Fenton and Tyrone. So we'll see how far north that area gets. But this is where the worst of the wind is coming out of this storm, right in through there. Jake, Mount Morris, Grand Blanc, Detroit. Detroit definitely has a higher risk of severe weather than up near Mount Morris and Grand Blanc. We're going to continue to watch and monitor for this damaging wind threat. Taylor and Owasso, your risk is pretty close to zero as of right now. So the next scan we got, this wind is starting to weaken, but it likely will be moving towards Tyrone, Haller's Corner, and Heartland. So I'm going to put a track on it, get it up here into Rose as well over the next couple of minutes. If you're in the Osceola area, it's going to be right on top of you over the next couple of minutes towards Heartland by about 7:35, Haller's Corner by 7:40, and Rose by 7:45. If you're in Tyrone, also going to be closer to about 7:40 that you could see some of these stronger winds. Once again, for those that are just joining us, we have our severe thunderstorm warning until 8 p.m. for Livingston County. There is some rotation and some pretty strong winds that are coming out of this storm, potentially upwards of 70 miles per hour. A lot of this is going to stay south of the area, so our risk is fairly low compared to those down into Metro Detroit. Ilsa, for Flushing, the tornado potential looks very close to zero. I would say that your risk overall of damaging storms is very close to zero. So still watching where we have the worst of the winds right now. Towards M59, Interstate 96, US 23 in this triangle corridor in Livingston County. Debbie, for Owasso, it does look like it's going to miss you to your south. Davison also looks like it should stay to your south as well. Amanda, Flint should see some showers and storms. The worst of the wind right now, right here, most likely will stay to the south. Tammy, yes, Waterford is in the path of these storms. I would say your risk is going to be heightened closer to about 8:30, 9 o'clock. You can see as we kind of expand the view, the worst of these storms happening right down in through here. And then you kind of go north of that, and it's just pretty much some heavy rain, definitely some thunder and lightning, but as of right now, the worst of it looks to be off to our south. Amanda in Fenton. Fenton is not in the clear. Same thing, Schwartz Creek. Not in the clear just yet. We're watching this line that's moving through Livingston. Could start to move up north towards the Fenton area and also in towards Schwartz Creek. And that's where the strongest winds are right now. But these winds do look to be starting to fall apart a little bit more. Still, though, we have strong enough winds that could cause some damage. That's moving towards the Heartland area, Tyrone. It might scrape Fenton within the next half an hour. So I'm going to put a track on this once again, as we did just get the latest scan. So here's where the worst of the winds are, and we'll put it over the next few minutes. So Heartland, you've got about 5 minutes or so before the worst of the winds come through. Hickory Ridge by 7:44, Fenton by 7:49, Austin Corners 7:57 for the strongest winds. Holly and Davisburg, Amanda, you are in that potential risk of damaging winds coming closer to about 8 o'clock. Clio, you look to be too far to the north for this risk to make it towards you. Justine, no tornado warnings near Brighton, but there is the potential of a brief spin up, but definitely stronger winds. Midland, your risk is 0. You're too far to the north of this activity. Sam, sometimes it depends on county to county. But for those of you in Linden, you may be hearing the sirens just because of the potential of damaging winds. It's really just a way to alert people to some destructive storms. Doesn't always necessarily mean tornadoes, could also mean damaging winds like we're seeing out of this line right now. Michael, for Highland, you are under the risk of some damaging winds. The good news is that we're seeing out of this, you can see over the last couple of scans that this area of stronger winds, where you would see it in red, that's the strongest portion of the wind, that is falling apart as it moves into some not as conducive air. Howell, you appear to be out of the worst of the conditions. If you're in Genesee County, it's something we're watching, but as of right now, I would say our risk is fairly low, just with current progression of the radar. Same thing in Little Lapeer. You can see that that area of strongest winds is really starting to fall apart, which is good news. You know, we don't want any of these stronger winds by any means necessary. We'll show you the radar too. You can see some of these lightning strikes coming on in are falling apart. That's an indication that these storms are weakening with the worst of it, and it looks like the warm front may be happening right here towards Ann Arbor and Detroit. You know, might be talking about the worst of it down into Metro Detroit, of course, compared to us. They definitely have the worst of it down into Ohio and into Metro Detroit, where it was warmer and a little bit more humid than us today. Fenton, you are still under my watchful eye because of this area of stronger winds. Now, again, as I mentioned, it is still weakening. We'll take a look at what the radar is indicating for the wind speed, some of those still 70-mile-per-hour winds, that it's picking up, but you know, in general, we're seeing, well, it's a little bit higher. You know, some of these pickles aren't necessarily giving us the best indication, so maybe some bad data, because there wouldn't be negative wind speeds to go along with the stronger winds. But, you know, I could still see some 50 to 60-mile-per-hour winds coming out of this cell. As of right now, as you can continue to see, it is weakening. So I would still say monitor, but over the next half an hour, you'll see the strongest winds, and then you'll have no risk after that. Owasso, it looks like it's just going to be rain for you. You know, you might have red on the radar, but as of right now, your severe weather risk is not there. And that's going to, you know, be the same thing for 99% of us, including Flint. Our risk of severe weather looks fairly low. And as you can see, the National Weather Service is kind of agreeing with us. It is allowing for that severe thunderstorm warnings to just become a special weather statement in Oakland County. So once these storms move out of Livingston County, I think our threat will be fairly minimal, and we will end this live here on Facebook and YouTube. So if you're just joining us, the good news is this area of stronger winds are really starting to fall apart as they move through Livingston County. Doesn't mean you couldn't still see some heavier gusts and higher gusts coming out of this, but as of right now, I'm going to assume that they will either let the warning in Livingston County expire at 8 p.m. or maybe even cancel it early, just because we are not seeing as strong of a push of wind coming out of this storm as what we once previously saw. There is still the potential of some 50-mile-per-hour winds in Oakland County, but it looks as though the worst of the storms are down towards Metro Detroit. So very good news for us up here. You know, we are seeing a lot of rain, so there is the opportunity at some flooding for us. And if those flood advisories, warnings, or even flash flood warnings are issued, we will, of course, be bringing that to you as quickly as possible. But for 99% of us, our severe weather risk is now 0. Kind of what it's looking like. Now, if you have family in Metro Detroit, you might want to let them know about these strong to severe storms. It's really just up here, us up here in Metro or in mid-Michigan, that we are seeing less than ideal conditions for severe weather. Sabrina, no tornado watch or warning in Genesee County. There was the one that did touch down in Fraser, yes, but they had much better ingredients for that than we do right now. So not concerned about a tornado watch or warning for us here in Genesee County. Hopefully that is able to ease some concerns you have. And as you can see, wind is starting to fall apart with that storm. Could still be some gusty winds up to 50 miles per hour in through Fenton, Holly, over towards Groveland. But as of right now, the worst of the storm looks to be falling apart. Very good news there. Carrie Birch Run, your risk of severe weather is at 0 now. So before we jump off this Facebook Live, because I'm starting to see some signs that our risk is going to continue to remain low for this evening, I'm going to take you through where I expect some of the stronger winds, potentially upwards of 50 miles per hour. Still nothing to not be concerned with, but definitely won't be upwards of severe limits. But Daniel, Wixom, you have the opportunity of seeing some of these stronger winds down there. So I would make sure you keep a very close eye on it. For Lapeer County, Abby, I would say this risk continues to fall apart, and Lapeer County should not see any severe weather tonight. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a track on some of these stronger winds right in here. Take this out, and these will be kind of the time frames that we could see those 50-mile-per-hour gusts. So Fenton towards 7:51, so in another couple minutes you'll see some of those stronger winds. White Lake 7:55, Andersonville 8 o'clock, Springfield 8:01, and Independence by 8:06. So if you're still with us, I just want to mention that this severe weather risk continues to go down. I know we have this severe thunderstorm watch here, and that's going to continue until 10 p.m., but I would say our area is likely going to be canceled out of this watch before 10 p.m., just with current radar trends and the overall environment not as conducive for severe weather as it is down to the south. You know, there is still that special weather statement here in Oakland County for 50-mile-per-hour winds until 8:45. But it does look like the worst of these storms will continue to just maintain themselves down into Metro Detroit. Olivia, Milford, be careful. You will be seeing some pretty strong winds coming into your area, as well as dangerous lightning and also the potential of very heavy rain. Could mean that you have a hard time seeing if you are going to be driving. All right, everyone, I think that's going to wrap it up for this stream. If there are any additional severe thunderstorm warnings that are issued, we'll pop back in on right now. But I would say the worst of the conditions, some gusts upwards of 50 miles per hour, will continue into Oakland County. So if you're living in Oakland County, make sure you are mindful of that. Anyone else, so Shiawassee, Genesee, Lapeer counties, our risk is pretty low. Could still be some very heavy rain, gusty winds, some thunder and lightning, but the severe weather risk is not as high as it is down to the south. I appreciate you joining us on this Facebook Live and also YouTube Live coverage. We'll be back on at 10 and 11 for sure, kind of with the aftermath, but if there are any additional warnings posted, we will be back on here live.